Performance chemistry is about using your body and your physiology, your chemistry, to help you show up at your best when it matters the most. So as speakers, facilitators, coaches, leaders in this room, we have energy and behaviors that are contagious, and disproportionately so by virtue of our influence. And so when we choose to elevate ourselves by looking internally at our physiology and our chemistry, we can elevate all of those that have the privilege to be with us, to work with us, to see us present. So performance chemistry can help you to own the title CEO, Chief Energy Officer. Pretty cool, n'est-ce pas? That means you can mobilize energy on demand, even right now, after a really long day. And so maintenant, je vais changer en français pour la première fois de la scène. We are going to take a look at 3 topics. Je vais vous présenter 3 sujets de haut niveau. La façon de devenir un expert dans aucune matière, c'est d'aller profond. Aujourd'hui, nous naviguons sous les vagues, mais vous avez le choix d'aller plonger plus profondeur, à découvrir, de découvrir au maximum cette science de la chimie de performance. So we're going to take a look at a high level at 3 topics, and you have the choice to go deep and become an expert in either one of them in order to master your own personal chemistry. And you have a choice. You can do this yourself, or you can leave it to stress, because stress already is affecting your chemistry, and generally not for the better. So if you want to make sure that your chemistry goes right, because it really is a marvelous thing when it does. When it doesn't go right in the short term, we can wake up feeling a bit sluggish with some brain fog, maybe get an afternoon headache and struggle to fall asleep. When our chemistry goes wrong in the long term, we could struggle to lose weight, develop mood or anxiety disorders, and perhaps even other disorders like cancer or diabetes. And we heard already yesterday the prevalence of burnout, disengagement, and the high, enormous costs of healthcare affecting all kinds of industries across the board. But what about when it goes right? Oh, c'est merveilleux. Quand notre chimie se déroule normalement, c'est vraiment super. Comme l'amour ressenti entre 2 amants. So just like the chemistry between 2 lovers, when it goes right, it can be pretty incredible. It can also give us a vital outcome, which is resilience. And we know that we live, or futurists speak about the time that we exist as being VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And the one way to thrive and to endure in this space of time that's just so complex is to have the ability to be resilient, to bounce back, to be able to bounce forward, and to be able to thrive. And when we as individuals are resilient, we create teams that are resilient. We then drive organizational resilience. As individuals, we create then families, communities, and together that builds nations, that then builds global humanity in a more resilient way. And I look around this room and I see a lot of resilient global citizens, as I am. So where am I from? Why the South African accent when I'm speaking French? Voilà ce couple magnifique, Joël et Pierrette Morin, mes parents. Ils ont quitté Troyes en Champagne en 1969 pour une lune de miel. Ça fait 50 ans, ils sont toujours mariés et toujours en lune de miel en Afrique du Sud. Je suis née là-bas et je visite la France régulièrement pour connecter avec mes origines françaises. So I love France and all things French, and I come back regularly. My parents left France 50 years ago, still on honeymoon. And why the story? Why is that important? Because all of us have a story. And we arrive today with a certain set of chemistry and health outcomes and performance abilities based on our past. Our behaviors from yesterday and the week before and the years before, and those behaviors come from actions and emotions and belief systems and stories around culture, and we need to consider that, especially if we want to know where we're going forward, and if we want to build a more resilient future for ourselves, we need to understand where we've come from. And so the champagne campaign is part of my story. I've decided to combine joie de vivre with my raison d'être. So even though I'm a health practitioner, I'm a registered dietitian, and I work within corporate clients, large and small, helping them develop strategic well-being initiatives so that we can reduce this healthcare burden and reduce the amount of burnout and disease that we see. But I do not do it compromising champagne and good food. So that's a bit around where the champagne campaign comes from. Do I get this right all the time? Absolutely not. In fact, Brené Brown, who some of you may be aware of, if you're not, she's a wonderful resource. She speaks a lot around vulnerability. And 8 months ago, I moved to London. Je réside maintenant à Londres. And so I went through my first European winter. Still managing a successful business in South Africa. I was spending 4 nights a week on average in different hotels, eating on the road, which is not always easy. And I started really needing caffeine, struggling to sleep, not wanting to socialize with friends, and I knew that I was really getting close to burnout. So what I did was I took 5 days and I went off the grid. I went to my favorite place on earth, Paris, hid myself in an apartment, and I just read and watched Brené Brown and David Whyte, who's one of my favorite poets. And David Whyte expressed exactly what you're seeing on the screen, that the antidote to exhaustion isn't always rest, it's wholeheartedness. So when we follow our heart and our joy and our bliss, we find the energy that we need. However, you can be as excited about what you do. If you don't have the fundamentals, we heard from Michael about how important fundamentals are in sales. They're just as important in managing our health, because your skills and talents and your IQ and EQ will not show up at optimum if you don't have the basic energy or resilience to get out of bed in the morning or to make it through a difficult winter or some personal challenge or professional tiring times. So what I realized once again when I took that time out is that when we focus on ourselves, we can then focus on others. And as leaders in whatever industry you're in, you lead first by looking at yourself. So I have the opportunity to work with many cultures across many different countries, and what I've seen is that most of us have a desire to feel good, to not give up our health while we're building wealth. The other thing we have in common is, despite being various different cultures in this room with various different stories and futures, we all have one big thing in common, and that is this vessel that carries us through life, that we experience this beautiful life through. So as we inhale and as we exhale, we do so in the same way. As we walk, as we look up at the stage or into the audience, we do so in the same way. So to go inward, nous allons examiner 3 zones dans le corps et ce qu'on peut faire pour encourager une meilleure chimie, pour une performance supérieure à la normale. We're going to look at 3 zones in the body and what we can do to enhance the chemistry in order to achieve better performance. We're going to start with the head, and the best thing that you can do for this 2-kilogram universe that lives on your shoulders is to actually connect with your feet. So right now, can I ask you to wriggle your toes? Can you feel them? Can you feel the ground beneath your shoes? Because what we often do, especially in the work environment, is we spend our days from our neck up and we forget. We disconnect or disembody from our bodies. I'm sure I'm not the only person in the room who has resisted eating or going to the bathroom because I've tried to finish a proposal or work on some slides or take a call. So we need to move. Movement is incredibly good for us. When you get up and do more than 20 minutes of movement, you've got fertilizer that spreads throughout your brain. It's called BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor. There's a whole other cocktail of chemicals that gets released. Pretty good, right? What we also know is when you do regular exercise, and you do not need to be doing triathlons. That's the good news. The good news is that it really is just 20 minutes, half an hour if you can, on most days of the week, enough to elevate your heart rate ideally. And what that can do is help you to remember names better and where you last placed your keys, and perhaps what's coming up in your diary without always having to look at your smartphone. Because research shows all the time that regular exercise can increase the hippocampus, so the memory center of the brain, and activate the prefrontal cortex, and we've heard a lot about the brain. But if we all did what we knew is good for us, then we would all be, I guess, fit, slim, wealthy. But we don't. It's because of time, often, or we just don't have the motivation or the inclination. So if you don't have half an hour to go and exercise, the good news is that you can get a surge of dopamine while doing just 1 minute of exercise. So if you're feeling like you could do with a little bit of dopamine, which is going to light up all the learning centers in your brain, and to boost your metabolism, may I invite you, if you'd like to stand. And then for 1 minute, that's all we're going to do, 60 seconds, is to perhaps start moving. Maybe you just want to punch your arms forward. Maybe you want to reach up if you've been stretching. We can elevate the music. Thank you. And without taking out anybody on the side, maybe you can look to the back. Wonderful. Maybe if you feel like moving your hips, if you're like me and you enjoy salsa, step forward and back. I know there's a tango dancer in the room. Stretch up. Maybe you want to squat a bit. This is a really good way to get some blood flow going. Turn around to change your perspective. Other way. We'll do 10 more seconds. Oh, I see some nice fluidity coming in. Practicing for tonight. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Take a seat. I wish you could see what I'm seeing. The first thing I'm noticing is teeth. Teeth, because we smile when we move. People love to move. So what I do is I spend a lot of time with my clients talking about how we can get employees to do what we just did. Not everybody can stand up and dance, although I do have a client that did that. He has 15 people in his team, and he got everybody to share, I think it was 4 of their favorite dance songs. Once in the morning and once in the afternoon, there's a Spotify list that comes on, and randomly somebody's favorite dance song comes up. And if you'd like to, you can then stand at your desk and dance. That's not going to work, perhaps, I don't know, in an open plan administrative office. But we could be and should be doing things like having stand-up desks, or at least stations where people can stand and work. Or maybe having policies around stand-up meetings. Or perhaps having walkie-talkie conversations, so walking and talking, and trying not to sit as much as we do. Sitting is the new smoking. When we sit for longer than 45 minutes, our concentration drops, our metabolism drops, certain fat-burning enzymes stop working efficiently. There is very compelling evidence to show the benefits of moving more. So if you can think about moving for 1 minute, maybe start with once in the morning, once in the afternoon, great. If you can do 1 minute of quite intense movement, almost on the hour, I guarantee that you'll shift your brain chemistry for the better. Shawn Achor, who's the author of the book that you can see on the screen, speaks about how short bursts of activity show and tell your brain that your body actually matters and your behavior matters. And you can release dopamine, one of the most encouraging hormones in our brains that can help us not just learn, but also enhance our memory. So some of you may also have noticed, not just that you felt that your energy shifted, but that your heart is maybe beating a little bit faster still. So when we move, we know that our heart starts to beat faster, which is great, because it sends oxygenated blood throughout our body and to our brain. But the heart allows us to breathe, and breath allows the heart to function. The first thing that you do when you are born is take a breath. The last thing you do before you die is release a breath. The breath is the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. And if there's one gift that you give yourself in this lifetime, it is to start being aware of and perhaps working with your breath. It can certainly help you to manage your performance. So when we are stressed, most of us will respond by getting hyper-aroused. We end up being a bit more scattered, and I know I certainly do. I become very fiery and intense and direct, and I can't really sit down and focus and finish things. In that case, the best thing you can do is lengthen your exhale, which would look something like this. Because when we are stressed in that way, we generally take shallow breaths and use just the top part of our lungs. So you would go... And by lengthening your exhale, you trigger what we call the PNS, the parasympathetic nervous system, which is a nervous system that's a bit of a brake. It will help reduce that fight or flight stress response. If you are feeling, perhaps like many of you may be now, not hyper-aroused, but hypo-aroused, you could be actually quite tired and sluggish, especially if you've had quite a few pastries this morning and too much coffee, not enough hydration, we haven't moved, there's no natural light, even though it's a beautiful venue, the ventilation's not that great. So what you could do is the opposite, is extend your inhale. Do not do more than 3 of this now, because you could actually faint if you haven't been breathing correctly, but you would go... and that would instantly cause your heart to beat a bit faster, and you may even feel a little bit lightheaded. Those are just 2 ways that you can instantly use the breath at any time. It's for free. You don't need to remember to pack this into your briefcase. You don't need to pay for it. It's there. It really can be done any time of day. In this short video, you'll meet one of the quirkiest guys I've met. I wish I could package him and carry him around with me. And he speaks about that chaos that a lot of us experience when we're stressed. And he speaks about the monkey mind that bounces around, and how by simply tapping into your breath, without going off to an ashram in India on a meditation retreat, simply right now in your chair, tomorrow or Monday or Tuesday, when you're back in your routine of things, you can use this power of breath to help you stay centered and calm, mindful, and trigger the parasympathetic nervous system. Thank you for the video.
We can meditate everywhere, anytime. Even 3 seconds, 2 seconds, while you're walking, while you're having coffee and tea, while you're having meeting, so you can meditate. Many people has a little bit misunderstanding about meditation. They think meditation meaning think of nothing, concentrate. So push too much. So we cannot block thought and emotion. In fact, we need thought and emotion. So whether you listen to your monkey mind or not, that's the issue. What I call monkey mind, mine is chatting, pala 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 yada yada. So monkey mind is giving your opinion. So whether you listen to opinion or not, it's up to you, right? So through meditation, what we do is we have to make friends with the monkey mind. But how to make friends? Just giving banana doesn't work, So right method is you need to give job to monkey mind. How to give job monkey mind? So the simple meditation technique is be aware of the breath. So you ask monkey mind, hello, what's breath? So monkey mind says, yeah, good idea. And be aware of breath. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in. There's a lot of thought comes at the background. Don't care, no problem. So as long as if you're not forget your breath, anything is okay. Not need too much concentration. Just simply be aware of your breath. Breathe in, out, in, even 2 breath, 1 breath. So therefore, we can meditate everywhere, anytime.
Did you find yourself wanting to take a deep breath? Yeah. So if you'd like to maybe build on this, because perhaps, like me, you sometimes watch a phenomenal presenter, we've seen so many of them, and you think, how do they do it? Can I share a secret of how I do this? Because I look like I'm quite calm, right? And I'm not always like this. So I've got a strong routine that I do, and I'm going to share it with you. What it does is it connects breath and movement. This is a brilliant piece of literature. I'm busy doing a course called Embodiment Facilitation Coaching, and it's the best book that I've read this year. And what it does, if you look in the left quadrant, that is the symbol for being earthed and grounded. And as a speaker, that's a very good quality to have. So I invite you to perhaps join me in this exercise. It's called Eros. So we're going to bring in some more love and focus on the heart. As you take a deep breath in, you expand and lift yourself just a little bit higher with a little bit more dignity, puffing up your chest, but remaining comfortable. Then as you exhale, lengthening your exhale because you're trying to slow down and negate the stress response, I'd like you to relax all the tension around your face, especially your jaw, your neck, your shoulders. Allow them to drop without losing the height that you created when you expanded. And as you finish off the exhale, imagine your space around you opening up. So if I'm in a small boardroom, I would then imagine myself reaching the corners of the room, and in the theater, I really had to reach upwards. And it gives you a sense of taking up more space. And then as you finish your breath, you sink down. So as Hervé made us feel yesterday, which was one of the nicest meditations I've done in a while, like a grounded tree. So can I invite you to try this with me twice? When you're ready, I'd like you to inhale. And as you inhale, stretch up, create a little bit more height, expand your chest. And as you exhale, release any tension around your face, allow your shoulders to drop, open up the space that you occupy, and ground. Even though you're seated, feel the seat carry your weight, and the floor hold your feet. One more time, deep breath in. Create some height, and then allow all the tension around your face, your shoulders, your lower back to fall down through your body. Open up your space and sink. So that's how I appear, that I'm pretty calm and collected. The third, la troisième zone du corps qu'on va regarder, highly intelligent. It's been referred to already, which makes me very excited, because as a nutritionist and dietitian, this is my topic of passion, is around understanding how we can really use the gut. So hara is the Japanese word for abdomen or gut, which refers to the digestive system. And we're not going to go into a lecture, because if I start talking, we'll be here right through the gala dinner on this topic. What we know today is that your gut is probably the fundamental step towards any form of health or dis-ease or ailment that you may have. And so the healthier it is, the healthier you can be. There's a microbiome, a universe of bacteria that live inside our gut that helps the brain to function. And I know there's some really smart doctors in the room and cardiologists who would understand that connection better. What we know is that because of antibiotics, because of stress, because of poor diet, we generally don't have a good balance in these bacteria, and so they can cause problems with our health and trigger our immune system. So what is the one thing you could do that seems to be working for many populations is this, is to eat like an artist. So have a lot of color on your plate, and by color I do not mean Smarties or wine gums. I mean the stuff that our mothers told us to eat. And the more color you expose yourself to, the better, because the color compounds in fruits and vegetables are what provide the bioactive compounds that are really good for us. So practically that means when you have the opportunity to try and always make half of your plate loads of color. And I know that because there's a lot of French people in the audience, we already eat. On mange beaucoup de légumes. But perhaps you could use food more strategically. Alors, comme le mouvement, comme la respiration, on peut utiliser l'alimentation avec plus de stratégie. We can use food strategically. I'm very interested in the link between our nutrition and our genetics, because we can use food to switch on or switch off certain genes. Fascinating. So I've had my genetics tested, and what I discovered was my body really needs a particular type of vegetable to help my body, my liver, detoxify better. So what that means is that every day I have a serving of either some kind of cruciferous vegetable. Anybody have an idea of what those are? If you would like a list of these foods, please just contact me afterwards. There's one example on the screen. A portion of broccoli has the ability, in some individuals, to actually help your genetics be at their best. So it's a fascinating field, and I just want to mention that if you're interested in perfecting your nutrition and really getting strategic, taking a look inward to get as much data about your body is really important. And then work with somebody that can help you to pull this all together. So we've looked at a high level at what we could do around the chemistry around our head, our heart, and our hara, or our gut. And if it was easy to put this all into practice, then we wouldn't be here to learn. We know that it isn't easy to change, especially around this topic. So you'll see a doctor and a patient having a conversation. Doctor says to patient, the best thing you can do is give up smoking, drinking, and fried food. And the response? What's the second best? So I find that most of my work is around helping individuals to make behaviors, new behaviors, actually stick. Because all of us can go on a diet, right? We can start on a Monday, and we usually always do that, start on a Monday. And then by Wednesday, we've been caught up in a delayed train, or because there's another strike, and we've been on the road, and then we're like, I'm just going to relax, and I'll enjoy the weekend with my family because they're coming over, and then I'll start again on Monday, and we try and do too much all at once. Most of the behavioral strategists that I work with, that I read, are saying that the smaller your new behaviors are, because our lives are so full, the more likely you are to succeed at them. So a particular gentleman that I enjoy is B.J. Fogg, a professor at Stanford, and he has a formula, a recipe for successful behavior change. And the formula is MAT, which stands for motivation, ability, and trigger. So basically what he says is that when you choose something that you are intrinsically motivated to work on. Don't do it because the doctor or the dietitian or your partner said it was a good idea. Choose something that you want to change. And then make it so incredibly easy and simple that you just can't say no to it. That is the key. So for instance, when we spoke about the brain, we spoke about how movement is really good for the body. If you are somebody who only gets to move on the weekends, then having a goal of trying to do, half an hour or 1 hour of exercise every day is completely unreasonable. But perhaps saying that you would get up mid-morning and mid-afternoon to do 1 minute of stretching at your desk, that's something that's incredibly easy. Then if you can link that new behavior to a trigger, to something that you already do. So maybe, an example, whenever I get a phone call, I stand, and if I can, I walk. I never sit and talk on the phone. Generally, that's the rule. So the phone call has become a trigger. I also have triggers throughout my day that get me to take a deep breath. Very small things like that. When I brush my teeth, I express gratitude. So what I'd like you to do is reflect on the 3 zones that we've taken a look at, head, heart, and hara. And out of those 3, is there one thing that you feel you could do differently, that you could maybe start? Something that you are motivated to perhaps think about changing. And I didn't say not 2 and not 3 things, just one thing. And then I'd like you to share it with the person either next to you or behind you. And if they seem to have a better idea than yours, then feel free to steal that. But I'm going to give you exactly 30 seconds to share what is your one commitment to changing a tiny behavior. And if you think the person that's sharing the idea is trying to do something that's a bit too big, so if they're saying, I'm going to be doing 15 minutes of meditation, try and encourage them just to take a breath once an hour, for instance, that's more focused. So I'll give you 30 seconds to do that. Share what is the one thing that has resonated with you from the presentation and what you'll commit to ideally acting on in the next day or so, because the sooner you act on a new behavior, the better. So go ahead and change. Make sure that you don't leave out the person behind you, because I see some of you are sitting with the person behind you. I'll give you 30 seconds to do that. And then make sure that you listen to the other people next to you. Thank you. I see a lot of smiles, so I think you're pretty sure that these are going to be things you can do. Or maybe they're just so unrealistic you're busy laughing about them. So this one tip that you've just shared, that you have now declared, Fabian told us about that yesterday, that declaring what we're going to do is incredibly important. This is now your strategy to help you own your title, CEO, Chief Energy Officer. If you would like my slides and a list of any of the resources and exercises that I've mentioned, please contact me on any of the platforms or give me a business card sometime before we say goodbye. Merci. Au revoir.